Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Watch It Bro podcast. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad.
Another apology right out the bat.
Right out of the gate, we're apologizing for this movie. Not because it wasn't great, but because I know my parents well enough to know they were not going to like this movie. Welcome to episode 11 of the Watch It Bro podcast. I am Tristan.
And I am Marshall.
And today we are going to look at Disney's RocketMan, not
Uh,
Elton John's RocketMan.
this movie is one I watched a lot in high school and just out of high school, but I haven't seen it in like 20 years.
That's about where I'm at with it. I hadn't seen it in 20 years either. And should we get into it now, or should we wait until the end
No,
to do?
let's wait till the end and see. But
So should we go with the specs of the movie and just
yeah,
dive right in?
go with the Specs movie. Let's dive on in.
All right. So this is RocketMan. It is directed by Stuart Gillard, written by Oren Aviv, Craig Mazin, and Greg Erb. That's what it says.
I know the way your face made the
They
herb.
can't see my face.
No, they can't, but I can.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's starring Harland Williams, Jessica Lundy, William Sadler, who was in Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and Matthew Ellis in Iron Man 3 and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, President Ellis.
Yes. And also starring Jeffrey DeMunn, who was in both Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile with William Sadler.
Nice.
And of course, we have Beau Bridges, who is the older brother to Jeff Bridges,
Correct.
the brother that you actually know from things.
Well, Bo does more TV work.
Okay.
He's just around there more. I don't know. They both. I mean, Jeff Bridges does a lot too, so I don't know. Never mind.
Yeah, but Jeff Bridges is definitely more of a movie star.
Yes.
All right. So that's our cast. Did we just get into the movie now? Is that what happens next? This episode's not really flowing as well as the other ones have. So
Well, yes, we usually go into it. Let me start off by saying no. You start. It's your thing. It's your movie. I'll jump in a minute.
okay. So starting off, RocketMan. It opens to a shot. Oh, yes.
Yeah. As soon as on my end you're like and froze for like 5 seconds. I'm like, huh. I wonder how long that's gonna be.
Okay, so we take 2 of starting the movie.
Podcast.
So we open to outer space, and it's the opening of the movie. It's outer space with the Earth, and a rocket comes shooting around with a rainbow behind it and displays the title Rocket Man. And then we see a shot of Earth from outer space, it seems, and it like the camera's zooming out and you see it through what looks like a porthole, and you hear a little kid talking about seeing the Earth.
Yeah.
And that's our first introduction to the main character, Fred Randall.
I completely forgot what his name was when I watched
And
it.
it
I was like,
reveals
oh yeah, Fred.
and it reveals that he is in fact looking at a picture of the Earth set up in front of the dryer, which he's in, and he starts the countdown. He's communicating with what's it called? NASA, but
Yeah,
they're
Houston.
He calls himself Gemini, I believe,
I
is
think
what it
that
was.
was yeah. That's not in my.
And then go ahead.
I said that's not in my notes.
Oh, it's not in mine either, but I have a memory. Wow, throwing shade. Anywho, so so he counts down and just happens to count down perfectly right with the dryer, and so when he gets to blast off, the dryer turns on and starts spinning him in circles, and he's gone, Houston, we have a problem. And he's turning around the dryer, and then Shelley Duvall.
Yes, uncredited
And I know why.
because it's the movie.
Because it's the movie, yep. And she comes in and she saves him. And he comes out of the dryer, gives her a little goofy grin, and the dad comes and just says, why can't he play sports like a normal boy?
And do you know who the
And
dad is?
no.
His name is Gaylord Sartain. His
Okay.
name is his name is Gaylord Sartain. He's been in quite a few things, but you would recognize him most as the heavier set chef from Ernest Goes to Camp.
Don't remember Ernest Goes to Camp at all.
That's where they make the fettuccine alfredo, where you take the fettuccine and a little Italian alfredo.
No, that was that was Snick, wasn't it?
That was Ernest Goes to Camp.
No, I swear to God, that was Keenan on all that.
No, that was Ernest Goes to Camp.
In, in this brain, in this memory, it, it was on all that, and it was Keenan Thompson who gave us that gem.
Well, gonna add this to my list. Ernest Goes to Camp. You can all look forward to an Ernest movie coming up.
I'm sorry, Mom and Dad.
You can cut that out if you want. But yes, he was the heavier set chef from Ernest Goes to Camp and in several other Ernest movies.
I don't remember. No,
Okay.
no. I had Ernest Goes to Camp. I rented it or bought it or watched it, started watching it on some kind of streaming service, and I'm like, this isn't familiar at all. And it turns out I was thinking of Camp Nowhere.
Ah,
So my camp movie is Camp Nowhere is the one that I really remember watching, except
is
for the end when they sing the Turtles, which is at the end of Ernest Goes to Camp.
the turtles parachute in.
Yes, that is
Okay,
Ernest.
you remember that? Okay,
Yeah, that's all.
okay. That, I mean, never mind.
So back to this episode of Rocket Man.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, the dad is uncredited as well.
Yeah, the two big names who are just there to be there. So we cut from there, and we are 23 years later, first Mars mission. That appears on the screen, and we are at NASA headquarters in Houston, and we are with the Mars team, and they are trying to land on Mars right
Yes.
now.
Yes, they are.
And they are running into a bit of difficulty, and they start crashing.
And panic ensues.
Panic ensues, yes. Let's see. Yes, they're panicking. They actually end up making corrections and crash and all die. And then it's revealed that they are, in fact, in a simulator.
Yes.
They don't tell us that right away. It is pretty good. It's just like
They crash and all die.
they crash and all die. That's the setup. And then
Right.
then you see the dude go over to the simulator and be like, well, congratulations, you're all dead.
Yeah.
And the I don't recall his name. I didn't write it down until later.
Paul?
Not Paul. The computer guy who's like, there's a glitch in the software. That's why we cry.
Gary? Yes,
It
it
is
was
Gary.
Gary.
Yes, Gary. Then Gary's like, not my fault. Glitch in the software. Go blame the jerk that wrote the thing.
Yeah. He is upset not having it.
Yeah. He says whoever wrote it wrong. There's a glitch. Go get him and deal with him. And then it cuts to we meet grown-up Fred. And oh my gosh, is that an introduction? He's got this orange Mr. Bean looking thing that he's driving. He squeezes into the parking spot that's too small for the car he's in. He's trying to get out one door dinging the guy next to him on his left. Same thing on the other side. He's door dinging the car on the right. Luckily, it's a convertible. He hops up, grabs his stuff, comes over the back, and walks on in. He works at NASA as well.
Yeah, he's gets out the anti-theft. He gets out his anti-theft device.
That's right. Better grab the anti-theft device.
In a very Mr. Bean move.
That's what Rachel said too. She's like, "Oh my gosh, he's like Mr. Bean."
And that's the only time I would ever compare him to Mr. Bean.
Yeah, I just said he's like a cross between Mr. Bean and who else? I can't remember who else I said.
Roger Rabbit?
No, I can't remember who now. Anyway, I digress. So we follow him into his office. He opens the door. He walks in past three people who are just kind of awkwardly lurking behind his door.
Well, the door
I mean-
opens up so we can't see them.
Sure, but if you're going to wait in someone's office, you are not going to hang out in the back corner behind the door. You're going to be in the middle of the room so they see you coming in.
Exactly. But also, whose office door opens inward like that? It always opens to the wall.
I guess.
It's I mean, it's for the joke, and it's actually a pretty funny joke.
It is. It's great. He walks in. He's like, "Oh, 5 minutes to save the world." He plops down in his computer chair, fires up a game, and I want this chair. I don't even play the kind of games that would require a chair like this, but I want it. I might actually. Hold on. I might if I had that chair, I might get Elite Dangerous and play with my friend John. Shout out to John. That could be many people, but
Good use of
Johnny
the shout
knows.
out.
Johnny knows because I said Elite Dangerous first.
Does Johnny listen?
Johnny does. Johnny listened, and and John is now on the fifth Tremors movie because of our podcast. Oh, it's funny because he texted me today and he goes, I'm on 5 of Tremors. I want to stop, but it's Bert's origin." And I'm like, or maybe it was 4. Maybe it was 4. Yeah, it was
Yeah, that's the
4
one
because
that's back in time.
I'm like, you got 3 more. And he's like, "No, 1 more." And I go, "Bro, there's 7." And he's like, "Oh man." Anyway, so Randall's playing his game. Fred. I'll go back and forth between calling him Fred or Randall.
Fred Randall.
It's Fred Randall. Fred or Randall will be Fred Randall, depending on my mood at the time. Anyway, he dies, spins around in his chair, notices the people there, and he's super excited. He's starstruck by these people. It's the Mars team. And he goes up and he's shaking everybody's hand, actually introducing them to themselves. Like,
Yeah, he's
"You're
like,
this person, this and that, and you're Wild Bill.
"It's Wild Bill Overpack."
You've done 8 shuttle missions. 8 shuttle missions." And he goes, "Well, actually 9, but who's counting?" And he goes, "Well, apparently you are, my friend."
Apparently you are, my friend. He's got
Yeah,
some good.
he he's got some of the best one-liners, and he's so innocent about it, which is great. And we missed it on the way in, I think, is, there's a picture of the Mars team actually on the back of Fred's door.
Oh,
And
yes.
he has taken a picture of himself and cut it out and glued it so his arm is going around the only female member of the Mars team.
Yeah, he's got himself a little crush.
A bit.
As well as being a super fan of the Mars team and everything they're doing, he's got himself a crush on Ford. Her last name's Ford, right?
Julie Ford, yes,
Julie
that's her
Ford,
name.
who was also on the Mars team. Yes.
Yes, who we will meet later. And then
Oh,
excuse me,
the other guy with them, I don't think we mentioned him. We mentioned Gary, we mentioned Bill Overbeck. The other guy that's with them is Paul.
Paul, yes, he is head of Houston, I guess. He's the one that calls the shot for the team.
Yeah, yeah. He plays Dale in The Walking Dead. He's also in the movie The Mist, if you've seen any of those, but
Sure. Anywho, so they go to him and he's like, "Well, what's this all about?" And they go, "Hey, your software is glitching and these people are dying every time they do the simulator." And Fred's like, "No, that's not possible. It's perfect. I wrote it myself." And so he sits down in his chair and he's like, "Watch, watch, watch." And he pulls it up and he's typing away and he's making these weird sound effects. And he's like, "Ah, got it." And they go, "You fixed the problem?" He goes, "Nope, popcorn kernel been stuck in my molars for like a week." Throws it and then goes, "Okay, here's your problem." Someone, not me, thinks they know what they're doing and they input their own coding in there. That we just, yeah, and right here he's got a great one-liner line too, because he's like, "Here, well, we'll just reprogram with what we like to call the right way," and click, and here we go. And he's got this little shuttle on a spool thing, and it starts spinning around and doing its thing, and he's making sound effects which are perfect.
Yeah.
Great at the sound effects. Harland Williams is, and shuttle spins around, comes in for a perfect landing. It shows a computer screen. Everything has gone swimmingly, and shuttle lands without a hitch. And this upsets Gary. This upsets Gary a lot.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm
It's
a decorated astronaut."
Yeah, he's like, "I'm better than this guy. Move." And then so he sits down and he punches back in his codes and he's like, "Watch." Hits enter, thing starts spinning, and we run into the same problem that we saw the first time, except that little shuttle on a spool spins out of control and whacks Gary straight in the face and
Yes.
knocks him flat on his back. And then we get a good shot of like the camera supposed to be Gary looking up, and Harland William or Fred drops his glasses on his face just to add insult to injury.
And then hurriedly points at Bill and Paul, who are also looking down at him.
Yes. Yeah. And then let's see. Wow. And so we cut to the Mars team in with his name is Ben. He is the one that's basically a step above Paul, I would say.
Yeah, he's Dr. Weber in Grey's Anatomy. For those that watch Grey's Anatomy, he's basically been on the show the entire time.
Huh. Well, good for him. I don't watch Grey's Anatomy, but
That's fair.
so first off, Ben is scolding Gary for his mistake, and he's like, "You fractured your skull. Like there's a skull fracture in there. We now have to postpone this trip until you're better." And the rest of the Mars team, Wild Bill and Julie, are saying we can't because of the weather patterns. It's gonna take, by our projection, if we have to wait 2 months, we won't be able to land for the next 2 years. We'll have to postpone for 2 years because of the way the sandstorms come up. It's just not possible. So Ben's like, postpone it 2 years again. And Paul's like, well, we have options. And Ben's like, I'm listening. Let's hear those options. And Paul goes, well, we could replace Gary with Gordon, who hasn't really tested well in the past, but he's getting better.
Yes.
And the guy who wrote the software that we're using, Fred Randall. So apparently they agree to
Yes.
this
To at least
and
test them out.
to at least test them out and see if it's even a viable option to consider bringing either one of them. And so we cut to Paul bringing Fred in for his testing. And you would probably have better luck. I was going to say he's like pretty much bringing a 7-year-old to NASA, but I think a 7-year-old would probably be easier to wrangle. I mean, they're pulling up and he's like, "Are we there yet?" "No." "Can I drive?" "No." "Can I at least park it?" "No." Just every kind of annoying. And then they walk in, he's looking around, and Paul's like, "I have to get you a clearance badge. You stay right here. I will be right back. Do not move. I'll be
Yeah,
right back." And so he goes to the desk, and Fred Randall's just gone.
he moves. He's gone.
Immediately, just walking away. And then he's playing with a pencil on a corkboard in the hallway is where we find him.
Yeah, well, it's like a big mural of the Milky Way, the solar system, and he's pretending the pencil's a rocket going into the sun.
Yeah. Having a conversation with
Ah!
nobody. And then it kind of pans out to show him playing, and there's people behind him. It's like an occupied hallway. Like
Yeah,
there's people within earshot that can hear this man playing, and so he turns and he hurriedly runs through the door and knocks the papers out of this man's hands, and is like, "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. It was this cafeteria lady shoved me through the door, and I didn't. It wasn't me," which you'll hear a lot in the movie.
wasn't
Well,
me.
heard a lot from me. It wasn't me. And we find out that this man he bumped into is Bud Nesbitt, who who was responsible for the accident with Apollo 13.
Yes, he's he's like, I know you. You're Bud Nesbitt, the wrecker of Apollo 13.
Yeah,
He's,
he's not
he's
also not shy about calling him out.
he's like, that was an accident. He's like, oh sure, just like the captain of the Exxon Valdez didn't see Alaska floating right in front of him.
Yes, and I wrote down that we have a Valdez reference, which was it's the second movie that we've had a mention of the Valdez. Because Waterworld, they're on the Valdez.
Right, and here's our second mention of the Exxon Valdez in 11 movies.
Yes.
Uh,
I did not know that when I picked the movie, otherwise I wouldn't have for redundancy.
yes, the Exxon Valdez is the redundancy.
Yes. So the Paul ends up finding him and hurrying him along and apologizes, saying that Bud has been a little on edge for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And then he wanders off again and notices a chimp enclosure
Yes.
and just kind of barges into that room where he meets Julie Ford, his crush,
Yes,
and
and
and the chimp Ulysses.
yes, and she meets while she's making chimp noises.
Yes. And she's very much surprised to find him there. And then Paul walks in and says, "Well, Randall, meet your new roommate." And he, of course, thinks he's talking about Julie. And we get our only adult joke in the movie.
I think so.
It's the only one I recall. And I watched this movie twice.
Okay.
I watched it last night, and I'm like, that's really the only adult joke, and it's done so innocently.
Yeah,
It's cleverly done as a slip of the tongue.
yeah.
If you watched it, you know. If not, watch it and find out. We're a family-friendly podcast. I'm not repeating it. It's an adult joke. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's funny. His roommate's the monkey.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, Hazen, the new guy." And she really does not like him
No,
because he
no.
says, "Oh, they make the new guy bunk with the monkey," and she's like all indignant. He's a chimp and he's smart or whatever.
Yeah, he is a chimp. I know the difference between monkeys and chimps.
And actually, now that we're here, fun fact. Actually, I'll save it for when it comes up. Bye. And so, yeah, she tells Fred what Ulysses' job is and how she's using calls that he's familiar with to teach him to go underground and find different fossil samples so they can hope to find life. That's the goal of this mission, is to find life on Mars.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, sure, under there to find the fossils and whatnot, and not the face-sucking slime warps or whatever." And starts going off on this tangent, making horrifying sound effects of slurping. And Julie's like, "Paul, I need to talk to you out in the hallway." And so they go into the hallway, and she expresses her what do you
Disdain?
disapprove.
Oh,
Disdain works also just as well. And I mean, it's the classic shot. It's the two of them, and the window right behind them are glass, and you see Fred and Ulysses bonding, which starts out with Fred making him angry and being attacked by him for a good long while. And just when Paul and Julie look into the room, they are playing it innocent and have bonded. And
yes.
Paul's like, "Oh, look, they have bonded. So quick, too." And then they do a double take and see that the whole room has been destroyed, and they run in there. So we cut to Fred at home packing for his testing at
Yes.
NASA, for his stay at NASA. And his mom is asking him why he's running away from home. She's a little overprotective.
And he
And he's
still lives
like,
at home.
he does still live at home with his folks, and his mom brings out a tray of sandwiches. Look, there's some stars and some moons and some rocket ships, and he's like, "Mom, I'm 30 years old. I'm almost a full-grown man."
I'm a full grown man.
Yeah, his voice cracks a little bit, and then he goes, "I'll take a rocket ship." And at this point, I turn to Rachel, and I'm like, "Yeah, I would have grabbed a rocket ship too,
Yeah,
because sandwiches in shapes are fun."
they are. I
And
like dinosaur shapes.
I was like, Dino Nuggies are the best. I've told Rachel this multiple times. We peak maturity at between 12 and 16 years old.
Yeah.
We learn to adapt to responsibility, but as far as what we enjoy in life and when we're alone and allowed to freely be ourselves, it's a 12-year-old. I still watch Winnie the Pooh when I'm sick. I'm 37 years old and I still watch Winnie the Pooh when I'm sick.
Nothing
So
wrong with that.
with my tuna fish sandwiches dipped in tomato soup. It is delicious.
I I I dip them in chicken noodle.
Oh, tomato's way better.
Campbell's chicken noodle.
Well,
The
Campbell's tomato.
tomato soup for cheese sandwiches, but the
Nope.
tuna fish and the chicken noodle. That's
Nope. Tuna fish in tomato is superior to grilled cheese and tomato.
no.
We'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Are you team grilled cheese or are you team tuna fish? Feel free to write us. watchitbropodcast@gmail.com or shout out on Twitter @watchitbropod. Or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram and give us your answers there. Thank you.
And and no one needs to comment on the tuna and chicken noodle. That was when I was younger. I haven't done that in ages.
Yeah, this is strictly about grilled cheese and tuna fish in tomato soup specifically. Back to the movie.
Yes,
So he pulls up to his dorm, and we see Fred and Ulysses in their room. Ulysses is using the bathroom.
because they let Ulysses, the chimpanzee, out of the facility at NASA.
To freely roam about while being guarded by the guy that none of them have ever met until the day before,
Right. I
and
mean,
has
he
showed no
he
sense of responsibility.
he does work at NASA. He has clearance, and he wrote the program that they're running on the shuttle. So,
Sure, but movie's got a movie, I guess.
yep.
And so yeah, he kicks his shoes off and kicks it through his window, right, right above his bed, and goes, "It wasn't me," even though there's nobody else there to even be mad at him about it. And he tells Ulysses that he is going to go out. So that means at this point he is going to leave the chimpanzee alone in the dorm with a busted out window.
Yes.
So we're at the bar.
We're at the bar.
And Wild Bill, I'm gonna call him Wild Bill.
Okay. Bill Overbeck.
Bill, I couldn't remember his last name, but well,
Wild
I'll
Bill
call him
Overbeck.
Wild Bill, which is funny because he was in the Green Mile and interacted with a character who also went by Wild Bill.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. Fun fact for the day. And so Wild Bill is like, "Hey, you need to try the blast off. Barkeep, one blast off for the rookie." And Fred Randall's like, "What is that?" And of course, it cuts to a stack of, is it 6 or 9 shots, all lit on fire.
I think it's 6. It's 3, 2, 1. Blast off.
Okay, blast off. There it is. Yeah, no, perfect. 6 shots stacked on top of each other in a little pyramid, like a little rocket ship,
Yeah.
and it's all on fire. And they're going, 3, 2, 1, blast off. And he takes a shot, blast off. And he takes another shot, blast off, takes another shot. And they get him wrecked.
Yes.
And so it cuts from there to him on the dance floor in a spacesuit that was hanging from the ceiling.
Yep. Wild Bill pointed up to the spacesuit. He's like, "That's your next challenge." And they
Oh,
got
yeah.
it down, stuck him in it, and he's dancing on the dance floor.
Yep. And Julie comes in, and she is not pleased by any of this.
No,
She does not think it's fun. She does not think it's funny. She does not agree with getting someone that drunk. And
which is
frankly,
good.
I'm on her side.
Yes.
And so he notices her, he gets bold, and well, I was gonna say asks her to dance, but he just kind of grabs her and starts
Yeah.
dancing
He's like, "Julie Ford, wow, let's dance."
and grabs her and pulls her on the dance floor, trips and falls, and she scolds him.
Yeah.
She tells him that she doesn't think he deserves to be there. She is taking this mission to Mars very seriously, and she expects all of her colleagues to do the same. So either get it together, grow up, or leave. And
Yes.
then we actually get kind of a sad, heartfelt moment from Fred Randall that kind of shows a different side to him, and he gets very, I wouldn't say very serious, but he kind of has this calm to him and just says, so, sorry, I was just trying to fit in to himself.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel for him at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like he's really fit in anywhere from his personality that we've gathered this far. And it's like, oh, fitting in does matter to him. He's a little more. It's starting to humanize him more than he has been.
Yeah.
Instead of just a punching bag and a joke, he is actually becoming a person with thoughts and feelings.
Yes.
And so then from here we go back to the dorm. There's a thunderstorm going on, and Ulysses is afraid of thunder.
Fred Randall's not too fond of it either. Or at least it
N-
startles him.
It startles him. So he mentions that to Ulysses, and he goes, "All right, he's still drunk. I'll sing you one lullaby." And so he sings this weird lullaby that he kind of just makes up off the top of his head, I think,
About monkeys.
about monkeys. I don't know why they're staying on Fred's bed because the window behind him is broken, and so he's wet during
Because
this
it's a
whole
full
scene.
size bed versus Ulysses' little bed.
No, it's 2 full-size beds.
Oh well, then I don't know why they were in the wet bed.
Yeah, because the window's broken, so it's just raining on Fred as he's trying to sleep, and But so yeah, he sings to Ulysses, and Ulysses kisses him on the cheek, and they snuggle and go to sleep.
It's very adorable.
It was cute. It was a touching moment. And so we're at the next day. We're at test day 1, 21 days before launch is what it says.
Yes.
And test 1 is the isolation chamber.
Yes.
And I wrote that this is so good and one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
It is hysterical, but I do have problems with it.
So, okay. Do you want to get into that now, or do you want me to take us in there real quick and then we can
Take
start?
us in there really quick, and then I'll.
We'll break it down as we get
Yep.
to each segment.
Yeah.
So, this is where Fred meets Gordon. They introduce each other, shake hands, play nice, and they learn the parameters of this test. They will be spending 24 hours in an isolation chamber, and they will each there's 2 chambers, and they will be side by side. They will be alone.
Yes, it is. It is to simulate the deafening silence of space, the solidarity, the
Solitude.
solitude, and keep you completely isolated.
Yes. So they're both prepared and ready, and they put them in there, and they start the clock, and they do. I do like the side by side, the screen split that they do.
Yes, that is good. The one gripe I have is that it's not soundproof.
If it's soundproof, it's no longer funny.
Exactly, but they specifically said soundproof.
Did they say soundproof?
Yes.
Apparently, it's not.
No, it's not. Because the first thing Randall does when he gets in there is goes, "Hello."
Yeah, he starts doing the echo. Is that you? Is that you?
No, it's not me.
Yes, it's me. It has to be. No. Yeah, he
Yeah,
starts immediately like a little kid hearing an echo for the first time.
yeah,
Starts playing. It
and
startles
Gordon.
Gordon at first, and then he hears it and he's just shakes his head and laughs because apparently he thinks this guy's an idiot. And I think
Yeah,
that's pretty much he's like, oh, this guy. And he settles in for the next 24 hours.
yeah.
And then and then it cuts or it shows I didn't write down all the timestamps, but it shows like it pops up with Randall singing John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt,
Yeah, Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
that
His,
one.
yeah.
And um, it gets to the point, his name is my name too. Whenever I go out, the people always shout. And then he proceeds to shout, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. And it goes over to Gordon, and you see him his eye is starting to twitch. And then he listens, and he's like, oh, good, he's stopped. And it cuts back to Randall, and he's whispering, Jacob Schmidt. And then when it gets to the people always shout, he yells, John Jacob Irish, and you get Gordon who just sits up and goes, ah. And then it proceeds to do a cut of him just basically on repeat, screaming, John Jacob Irish, and Gordon sitting up going, ah, ah. And then it cuts to outside, and it shows Paul and who's with him?
It's the guy who's the judge from How I Met Your Mother, the Frog Lake judge.
Okay. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, it is. Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And and he's sitting there, they're going, because they can hear him going, John Jacob Irish, man. And they can hear Gordon going, nah. And he's just like, this is inhumane. But they keep it going for
Yep.
the full 24 hours. And then there's we cut to about a half hour left or less.
Yeah.
And it's Gordon's in there not doing well. You think he has his pants tied around his head or something.
Yes, his pants are tied around his head, trying to keep the sound out.
Oh yes, that's what for. And then Fred is got his socks on his hands and is enacting a play
With the Plimptons.
with the Plimptons. Yes. And then the timer goes off and they go and get Gordon, and he's got the pants tied around his head still, and they're looking at him all weird, and he's like, "Somebody's stolen my pants." And then they go over to Fred and open it up, and first the socks turn and look towards the light, and
Yeah.
then Fred does, and he's like, "Could you give us another hour? We've just started the third act." And I guess they grant it because they
They
close the door back up.
close the door and leave.
Yeah. And, and so then we cut to we are 16 days before launch, and they are testing the candidates, right?
Yes.
Potential candidates
Yeah.
ability to handle G-force.
Yes.
It is revealed that Bill holds the record for 6 Gs.
Yep.
And Gordon just finishes up at, what was it, 5.5 Gs?
Yeah, 5.5 Gs.
And they're like, "Oh, hey, Gordon, looks like you got over that motion sickness."
Yeah.
And then Randall walks up and goes, "Oh, I shouldn't have had that liverwurst sandwich and eggs before this."
It
And
was liverwurst and head cheese.
oh, that's worse.
Yeah, never had head cheese.
Never gonna have head cheese,
I've
but
had liverwurst.
it's been so long I don't remember if I have or not.
Dad used to get it a lot.
Okay, I don't remember what it tasted like if I did. But anyway, that triggers Gordon, and he runs over and throws up.
Yes.
Just right in the middle of the walkway.
Yeah, right at the door. He doesn't get over the door, it's right at the door.
Yep. And so Fred asks that this is when we find out that Bill did 6 Gs because Fred asks how fast it goes, and he says over 200 miles an hour and 6 Gs. Well, Bill here holds the record. Okay, well, let's get started. And they go, "Have fun." And he goes, "What is my Chinese neighbor's middle name?"
Fun fact.
which I've totally accepted. Like, yeah, that makes absolute sense. No, it doesn't.
Fun fact, the studio thought that almost took that joke out because they didn't think it would play well. But upon polling afterwards, the Chinese community enjoyed it, so
Very good. And then, yeah, so, and I think, well, Bill had the same reaction I did, where you hear it and you're like, makes sense. And then as half a second goes by, you're like, what does that have to do with anything? I just learned something new about Fred's neighbor.
Yep.
And so they get Fred all strapped in, and they start him up, and it keeps going faster and faster, and he's having a fun time with this.
Yeah. Yeah, he's loving it. He's cheering, he's woo!
Yep, he's yelling faster. They've already hit 6 Gs, and he's asking them to turn it up, and
Like faster.
and they ask Wild Bill, what should we do? Should we get it? He's at your record. He's almost at your record, and he's like, crank it up to 7 Gs. So they do, and that appears to be too much for Fred because 7 Gs is a lot.
Eventually he breaks the record and he's still cheering.
Yeah, and then he gets to about he starts getting to 7.
And it's one of those things where like your body's like, okay, I'm done. That was fun. Now we're done. And
Yeah.
it was done. Very
Very quickly. And so he's, I want my mommy at this point.
Yeah, he's like, this is enough. I want my mommy.
And of course, it breaks. So
The bolt snaps off.
The bolt snaps off. He goes flying through a wall, past some nuns, and then hits Gary in a wheelchair.
And this is yes, he hits Gary in the wheelchair. Gary flips and lands on his face.
He probably does like 7 or 8 flips down the hallway.
So as he's coasting through the hallway, we cut to one of the nurse and Gary, and she, she's like, she's just mocking him. It's like, are you gonna be a big man?
So it wasn't just me. She is condescending to this man and openly,
It's like,
openly
we try
mocking
walking
him.
today. How about we try walking today? and she leaves him. He turns around and gets hit by Randall in the chair, and then he falls on his face. And the greatest part, his friend comes back to the training. And he's like, "Sorry about that." Ran into Gary.
That's fantastic. Oh, and I hope that all recorded because that's hilarious.
But no one checked on him after the chair took off. They just took Gordon to the next section of the training, and Randall comes off dusting drywall dust off himself because he went through like 6 walls.
That's right. They're all at the next one. Where's the guy? I guess Randall's gonna meet us here.
Should we check on him? Nah, he'll be fine. You sure? That thing's going 7G. Yeah, he'll be fine. Did, did I just did I just, did I just hear school children screaming?
He went over 200 miles an hour through a wall.
I think through a couple walls. Oh,
At least one that we know of.
and hit a dude in a wheelchair. Oh, my cheeks hurt. I don't know why that part was so funny.
That's so good when you actually think about the chain of events.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back after this fit of laughter.
It's another girl, adult with pigtails.
Don't do that, Thomas.
you, you good?
No.
Oh.
At least that's what had more to do with the movie.
It did.
No. Oh, everything hurts. It hurts so much.
We've got to power through and move on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh. That makes the podcast worth it.
yes, moments like that. So we're at the next test, and it is reassembling a circuit board.
Yes.
And Bud Nesbitt is in charge of this one, and Randall is in the chair, and he is putting the circuit board together, and he says, "Outstanding, fastest time he's ever seen."
Yes.
Now I'm gonna turn the chair on, and you got a minute to get it done, which I like because they didn't tell us how long it took him the first time.
Right.
And so they started and this is the only test that we actually don't see Gordon do.
Right. We just get Randall's side of it.
Right, and he fails miserably once the chair starts going.
Yes.
Ends up
He freezes. He panics. He can't even focus on what he's doing. He just hangs on and rides it for the minute.
yeah, and ends up with it up his nose.
Yes.
And then we cut to 10 days before launch, and they're testing lung capacity. And this part was stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
But I'm just gonna come out and say this part was stupid. So Bill holds the record for this at 3 minutes, and they're both side by side testing their lung capacity. They got to keep the golf ball levitating for as long as possible.
Ping pong
And then
ball.
when I say golf ball,
Yes.
okay, very light golf ball.
Those are heavy. I don't think
Sorry.
you could blow a golf ball and keep it up.
Sorry. Well, they're not blowing; they're holding their breath, and holding their breath is what causes the golf ball to float.
Right.
They're not blowing air out for a solid
it's
3 minutes.
it's a weird test because it looks like they're blowing.
Because the ping pong ball is bouncing up and down.
Yes, and if they're just if it's just holding their breath that's keeping it up, put your tongue over it for a second. I know that's cheating, but it's weird.
Well, it's open so wide that they can't just put their tongue over the top
True.
of it.
Okay.
So anyway, so they're approaching the record,
Yes.
and Fred starts doing this weird bull charging thing.
Stamping his foot like a pony, just
Yeah. And then he starts moving over. So I mean, yeah, this part bummed me out. It's like that's really you couldn't have come up with a better way to make something like this happen. And
right.
so he starts doing his little like scrape his feet, and then kicks Gordon in the misters.
Yep.
And that's how Gordon loses that one.
Yeah, and he probably would have beat the record. Gordon looked like he was doing pretty good still.
Yeah, he looked very concerned about what Fred was doing, very not concerned about how much air he had left in his lungs.
Right.
So yeah, so we get our obligatory kick to the misters, and that loses. Randall beats the record, haha, and then we have more visual comedy of him
He swallows he
the golf ball ricochets around or flies up and lands in his mouth, and then he hawks it up, and then it ricochets around and breaks a test tube.
Yeah.
That whole thing was unnecessary. No, I guess it wasn't completely unnecessary, but the way they did it, it shouldn't have. I didn't like the cop out.
Yeah. The
Kick to
Mister shot.
Kick to the misters.
Because we don't have a lot of kick to the Mister shots in our movies.
No, I'm not a fan of them. I don't find them particularly funny. Anyway, so that's what happens. Fred breaks the record. Gordon takes one of the misters, and things break. But while that's going on, I forgot to mention Bud Nesbitt and Julie Ford are watching from a one-way mirror.
Yes.
Or two-way mirror.
One way.
I don't know. One of them mirrors that's also a window.
Yes.
And Bud turns to Julie and says, "Hey, if this kid actually makes it, do me a favor and look out for him, all right?" So he's, I guess, made himself endearing to Bud. And she kind of smiles.
Bud's got a little soft spot for him, and you can tell she's getting a soft spot for him too.
A little bit, yeah. And then we get the kick to the misters and blah blah blah. And now we're back current, and now we cut to 7 days before the launch, and they're having a big press conference. The news is asking questions, and it gets brought up. Hey, do you have a replacement yet for Gary? And Ben's like, "Yep, we have a replacement, and we are proud to announce." And everyone is expecting Gordon to win.
Yes.
He pulls the mic.
Gordon's sitting there with his eye patch on.
Yes.
Because the ping pong ball must have hit him in the eye.
Maybe something hit him in the eye. I remember that now. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, because I just remember him sitting there with his eye patch on, and Gary is there too, or Greg.
Gary,
that's right. Yeah, Gary's there too with his neck brace on and back in a wheelchair.
Yep.
From the incident.
Which he's surprisingly still alive from.
But yes,
Gordon. Go ahead.
I said yes. They're about to announce who's going to take over for Gary on the mission to Mars.
Right, and Gordon even like slides the microphone towards him. Randall starts patting him on the shoulder, congratulating him.
Yeah.
And then Ben announces astronaut Fred Randall, and you get one of the most impressive screams that come out of that man's mouth. And he is like fingers shake like a Southern belle who's just won the lottery. Like that one, did you? Brooke Marshall again. That's twice.
I'm just thinking of Blanche Devereaux.
That's who I had in mind when I said it.
But this is he does a really good job with it because it's a scream of pure excitement, shock. Just he's going to space. He's going to Mars. He's going to be on this rocket ship, and he is.
Well, it's his lifelong dream.
Yeah, he's freaking out, and he's he's screaming, he's shaking, is he grab Gordon and start shaking him, or does he grab Gary and start shaking him?
Neither. He trips over him on his way to the podium.
He does.
And then we cut to launch day. Because apparently we didn't need any more of that scene, or they didn't know where to go with it.
Right, right.
We assume he gave a speech or something.
Yeah, they announced him. He's screaming, making his way to the microphone, and we go to launch day.
Yep, we're at launch day, and he is getting cold feet.
Yes, he's
Doesn't think he
nervous.
deserves it. He's nervous. He's terrified, and Bud's leading him up there, and he turns to Bud, and he's like, I can't go. I'm not ready." And Bud says, when he was in control of Apollo 13, he was given 3 coins, one for, I didn't write it down, but one for bravery, and it hasn't done him a whole heck of a lot of good. So maybe it'll serve him good. And so he hands Randall his coin for bravery.
Yeah, I think it
And
was.
he says, "What?"
Yeah, I don't remember what he said, but he said that he had 3 coins. He gave one of them to Neil Armstrong. He said,
Yes, and then one to somebody else,
and then he's giving the 3rd one to him.
yeah, for bravery.
Yeah.
And then Randall says he feels like the Cowardly Lion, and starts to sing the "If I Were the King of the Forest" and do his. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. That was a treat just for you.
Well, now it's for everybody. But he does his Cowardly Lion impression, and it is spot on.
It is.
And Rachel, my wife, watched that, and first of all, she loved it. She laughed, and she goes, "How many times do you think they had to do that?" Because Bud is there, stone faced, with this man going, "Hello," like 4 inches from his face.
And he goes, "Ah." That little laugh the lion does.
Yes. And he's stone faced. He doesn't break. It doesn't even look like he's going to break. And he says, or you could have just said, "Hey, Bud, thanks for the cool coin."
It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, okay, hey, Bud, thanks for the cool coin. What was the rest of that?"
And then he turns and gets on the rocket ship, and they're all strapped in, ready to launch. Mission control.
Yes.
That's what you call them. Mission control.
Or ground control.
Or that.
Ground control to Major Tom.
I'm not gonna sing along. I'm not gonna sing along. I'm not gonna sing along.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Don't do it, because now I'm picturing Chandler's face.
Okay.
So they're in the shuttle cockpit, getting ready to launch. They're communicating with mission control, dotting the T's and crossing the I's of everything that needs to happen. Everything's abbreviated. The marshal's dying, and you can't see it. He's muted and he's cracking up.
Engines on. Get it?
You had to.
I had to. It was too much.
It was okay.
But yes, mission control, ground control, Houston, wherever they're. Oh boy.
So they're getting ready to launch. They're making sure everything's good to go before they start the countdown. Everything's abbreviated, so they're communicating back and forth. And Fred Randall's just throwing letters out there: AT&T,
Yeah.
CBS, BMW.
BMW, yeah.
And everything
IKEA.
checks. I don't know why that happened, but everything checks off, and they do the countdown, and they launch.
Yeah.
Fred says he's got a fly in his helmet and sneezes. But I didn't like that either. Not a big
that's
fan
not
of
a,
snot.
that's not a it's not a great. It's a lot too. It just coats the inside of the helmet.
To me, it's not funny. To me, it's just icky, and I don't like icky.
It was an excuse to get the helmet off of him,
Why do they need the helmet off of him?
just to get more of the shot of his face and the excitement.
Okay, so they do that, and they get to space, and Fred's floating around. It's awesome.
Yeah. His arms start going up. He unhooks himself so he can float around. He's
loving it.
It's like he's back in that dryer.
Yeah, and
Just that excitement.
Yep, and then Wild Bill turning on artificial gravity in 3, 2, 1, click, and Fred falls and hits the ground pretty good. And then Julie goes, "Hey, Fred, Take a look at that, and you see him. He looks out the window of the spaceship and sees Earth, and he has this moment of awe, and reverting back to being a small child and saying, "It really does look like a giant blueberry,"
Yeah,
and it's kind of sweet.
it is.
This movie has some of those moments.
A few.
Yeah. And then we go back to, I was gonna say, then my notes it says call back to 7-year-old on a road trip, and that's, are we there yet? No. Can I drive? No. You never let me drive.
Yeah.
And then it's an outside shot of the spaceship while it's doing that, and then we cut to Randall uh, cooking dinner, I guess, in like some kind of tubes of food in a microwave.
Yes. Now, I know they have tubes of food for space missions because you don't want food floating everywhere, so you just squeeze the tube, put the cap on, you don't get food everywhere. They have artificial gravity. They could actually have things and not just tubes of food paste.
Storage,
Probably storage and because of the jokes that are about to come too.
because the monkey's messing with the food.
Yes.
But so he pulls the food out of the microwave heater oven thingy,
Yeah.
and he's hot, hot. It's the flesh, which it's
Yes.
funny,
So
I guess.
so but that causes him to pull out the first aid kit and get the burn ointment.
Right. So he pulls out the first aid kit and sets up Ulysses, messing with it, and you see him put Ulysses put tubes on trays,
Yeah.
and actually all you see is laxatives.
Yeah,
You see
he puts a couple
laxatives go down on it.
yeah, laxatives go on one tray.
So Fred brings everything out, and you see first Julie eating, and she starts foaming at the mouth, and he goes, "Oh, Julie's doing her old Yeller impression. Oh no, Pa, I don't want to put Yeller down." You like that one?
I did.
You're welcome.
But Julie looks at it and sees it's,
Toothpaste.
toothpaste.
You didn't have to say it the same way I did.
Toothpaste.
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 Okay, now one more so I can cut the rest of it out this time, right?
Toothpaste.
Say it.
Toothpaste.
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 Thank you. And
Paste.
so she runs off, and then next is Wild Bill, and he takes a big old bite, and he's just like, "Brr, brr, this isn't potatoes."
No.
And he flips it over and reveals that he in fact got hemorrhoid cream.
Yes.
And
And what does hemorrhoid
he's
cream do?
and he's not happy about it.
Hemorrhoid
And he's
cream
trying to
shrinks your hemorrhoid, so his mouth is getting all small.
I don't think it would work that way.
No, but it's a very Tom and Jerry type move.
Yeah, it's great. And then Randall's trying to figure out what he's saying, and so he's mimicking the small mouth,
His
and
kitty cat mouth.
so he runs off
Yep, and Fred's just left to eat on his own.
on his own. And then
And
there,
this is
yeah,
something that I was gonna say, and this is something that's never touched on again. They don't ask him about why. It's like,
why,
what?
why did you give us toothpaste and hemorrhoid cream?
Right. That doesn't come up. They don't ask him about it. They just kind of roll with it, like, "Oh, he got us good, right?" No, I'm assuming that he says Ulysses must have put it on there when he was, but I don't know. It just never comes never comes up.
I just assumed that they figured out that hey, the monkey messed with stuff.
I guess because it goes back because it as soon as they leave, it cuts back to what them all in the common area together.
It's Julie setting up for the interview with the president.
Oh, right, right.
And he's
And
like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit this one out." And then you hear his stomach gurgle.
so we know what happened to the laxatives.
We know who got the laxative. Yep. And so he's like, "Oh God, this is out of nowhere. I gotta go. I gotta go right now." And so he gets up to go use the bathroom. He's doubled over. He's not feeling good. And Julie's like, "Well, be careful when you flush. You don't want to get that. You don't get sucked out." She's like, "Oh yeah, it happens all the time." Because that's what he needs right now. And then I notice that he gets to the bathroom, and so the toilet is not quite right because they actually make a mold of your butt.
Again, they have anti gravity now.
Fair. Okay,
So
so there goes that.
this is one of the things that, like, I'm like, "Is it gonna be one of those weird anti-gravity toilets?" Like, "No, no, that's a normal airplane toilet, almost."
Because yep, they don't need the airtight seal.
Yes.
So yeah, so he uses the toilet, and I mean it's worse than a public bathroom stall. There's like a little like accordion cloth, and it's not far away.
No, no, it's
Like
just around the corner from where the president talk is gonna happen.
yes, it is,
And it's a smaller door. It's not even like an airplane door, it's a little accordion screen.
and it doesn't even go floor to ceiling.
Nope.
And so he drops the coin in the toilet.
Oh, yeah, he's trying to wipe the seat off, and then with his little handkerchief, and then he shakes it, and the coin goes in the toilet. He's like, "Oh, no, Bud's coin."
And then he starts going in for it. And then we cut to the meeting with the president, who I'm assuming is supposed to be a caricature of Bill Clinton.
Possibly. Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be a caricature of him, like a
Yeah, I could see
very
that.
over the top, almost cartoon version of Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then so they're talking, and then it's a birthmark. A pin exploded.
Yeah, well, yeah, but, I mean, before we cut away to that too, he puts his hand on the flush button. You see his little feet sticking out of the he gets kinda sucked in a little bit.
Right, right, and then they're talking with the president, and then he comes out, and half his face is blue, his arm is all blue, that's why I was making the,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
pen exploded."
yeah, it's diagonal, the part starts at the part of his hair, comes all the way down across his face and over his whole right arm.
Yeah, yeah, and so he's poking around, he's, "Oh, is this live?" And this and that, and the president stops his interview with the professional athlete or the professional astronauts. And he's like, I think we all want to know why. I'm doing the southern accent that he has. Why Fred Randall looks like a Smurf. And he's like, oh, go ahead, son, tell us. Go ahead, talk. And so Fred starts to give his nice little speech about, up here, there's a lot of wars and violence and bad things going on in the world. But from up here, it just looks like a tiny little blueberry. And I feel like, well, and then he starts singing that he's got the song, I got the whole world in my hands, or he's got the whole world in his hands, but he says, I got the whole world in my
Yeah.
hands.
I got the
And
whole world in my hands.
starts singing that,
I got the whole world in my hands.
and then he encourages everyone to sing along.
We got the
And
whole world in our hands. Sorry, that was the last one.
thank you. And so they do. They
And
start singing along. The president's having a laugh of it, and he's joining right along.
yeah.
And then we get questionably racist. I mean, there's
I will say racially insensitive.
well, okay, that's not questionable. That
Right.
I mean, it's he. This part definitely does not age well. Like it came on, and I was like, "Oh, oh, that's not good." Because he's like, now the French, and I didn't look it up, but I'm willing to bet he ain't speaking French.
No, he's not. I wrote it down. No, I didn't write it down. I meant to write it down. Give
What
me
is this
just
Chinese
one.
on point?
No, no, no. that that's worse.
Yes, it is. But then it starts showing. He starts singing in pretend other. He's yeah. He starts singing in other languages, except he's not really speaking the language. And then it cuts to clips of people from around the world supposedly singing along.
Yeah. So, um, so yes, the French words were completely made up by him to sound French, but ironically, he ended up saying, "I am the butterfly on the table" in French.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's my little fun fact.
No, that's great. But for the sake of the movie, as racially insensitive as it is, the whole world sings along with him. Everyone has a good time, even while Bill reluctantly joins in,
Yes.
and it's supposed to be a touching, uniting moment.
Yes. Because it's the first mission to Mars. It's a
Yes,
big deal, and the world cares.
right. And then it ends there, and we cut to after. Hold on, before we cut to that. So from the International Space Station to Houston to communicate takes 20 minutes.
Okay.
There's 20 minutes of lag time. So there is no
Okay.
way they're doing a live interview.
Well, they're not at the space station yet. They're still just in shallow orbit.
That's where the International Space Station is.
Movie's got a movie, and they got to have a interview.
I just want to point out it's not instant communication.
That's fair.
Okay. Now we cut to the future. Cut to the future. It's after
Go
after
back to the
the
future.
so
Get your
now
kids,
it's
Marty.
something's got to be done about your kids.
They're jerks.
That's basically the gist of it.
Sorry, I'm derailing this whole thing.
You know what? It's okay because this is how we talk about movies. It is
It is.
great. So I'm gonna keep like most of this in here.
That's good.
But anywho, so it's after the president interview, and Fred and Julie are just kind of by themselves. I don't know where Bill went
Spacewalk.
because I'm thinking of it. And I'm like, this I don't know. Anyway, we'll get to that later.
He's dealing with Ulysses.
He's with Ulysses. He's keeping an eye on the chimp, and so Fred's getting cleaned up. Julie's working on whatever she's working on, and Fred's like, "Oh, hey, it's my star," and she goes, "What?" And explains that he had a star that he picked out of the sky, and he said it was his star, and that was where he would go to be alone. I don't remember what he said actually.
It was the star he'd wish upon. And then he sings. When you
Right.
wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Don't sue us, Disney.
I'll cut that out for a copyright infringement. No worries.
I think you can do a couple lines if you want. Just the first part.
Yeah. Right. But so he tells her about his star, and she goes, "Oh, that's funny. I did the same thing." And he's like, "Oh, well, where's your star?" And she goes, "Oh, it's right there." And he's like, "Oh, it's next to my star." And then he tells her he encourages
Wish
her
upon a star.
to wish upon her star, and then he starts singing Jiminy Cricket. And first of all, his voice is just heavenly when he's singing.
Yeah, he does a
It
really
is.
good job with this rendition.
It is absolutely pitch perfect.
Much better than what I did.
Yes. The audience will never know about. Gotcha.
When you wish upon a star. Yay!
So, yeah, so he sings Jiminy Cricket to her, and she is in love. You can see it all over her face. She loves this man.
Yeah, it is
It happened just like that.
it's the same look that people used to get at Chris Cornell concerts.
I accept this, yes. And so we cut to them getting ready to go into their sleep chambers for the next 8 months. And
Yeah,
there are
yes, we're taking the technology in this movie with a grain of salt that they've got and artificial gravity and sleep chambers that can make people sleep for 8 months.
yes. Also, we saw the outside of the rocket of the ship that they're on, right?
Yes, yes.
How how big is it? Is it like the TARDIS where it's much bigger on the inside than the outside? Because I mean, they have rooms and stairs and all kinds of stuff.
I think it's a sizable rocket.
I don't know. They appear to have separate rooms. So okay, so why is the bathroom right off the kitchen then? Is all
Well,
the rooms saved for the sleep chambers?
I
Any
I mean, all the sleep chambers. I mean, they got to store all the food and the capsule and everything. So
okay, fair. Anywho, so they got three full-size sleep chambers and a monkey-sized sleep chamber. And
yeah,
I
they
asked
do.
this I asked this question every time I see this movie. Why, oh why, did the adults go to sleep first? Why are essentially mom and dad the first ones to go under? Why are the grown up? Why are the people that know how to do things the first ones?
Why would they be okay with that? It's like, well, I'm gonna go to sleep. It's like, oh, Bill's asleep. I'm gonna leave these two out here while I go to sleep. Ooh.
Why? Yeah. Why was Randall not the first one out?
And then the monkey.
And then the monk. I mean, either way you slice it, those two kids are going to bed before the parents do.
Yes.
Because what happens is Ulysses steals Randall's pod,
Mhm.
and so Randall jumps into Ulysses' pod, and everybody is now asleep.
Yes.
However, Randall is the first to wake.
Yes, because his since he's got a monkey-sized pod, he doesn't even get crunched up in there well enough that he's just kinda hanging out of it when the gas starts going.
Right. And, and so, yeah, he wakes up and he's like, oh, that 8-month-old morning breath. Yuck. And
Yeah,
he goes to the computer and asks, "Hey Siri, how long have I been asleep?"
that's
And
basically
Siri
what he does.
and Siri says, "You've been asleep for 13 minutes." And he's like, "Oh no." And then we get
He
a
and he's, "Oh, no," to the point where he doesn't know, he doesn't know how to wake up the monkey and move him.
oh, he doesn't know how these machines work well. Like they didn't give him any kind of course of like, "Hey, if something goes wrong, like here's what you do."
Right. If
Or if
you
you
get
need to
woken
wake
up and there's distress, you have to wake someone else up.
here's how you wake someone else up. Like he knows zero protocol for emergency situations.
Yes.
That doesn't seem right to me. There's no failsafe that wakes everybody else up as soon as one person wakes up.
Oh,
Anyway, we get into this lovely, lovely montage of him trying to pass the time.
to the song, "I couldn't sleep at all last night."
Yes. And he is
Do, 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 do.
and he is dancing with a spacesuit. He is trying
Yes.
to sleep in front of Julie's pod. At one point, he is squeegeeing the windows outside of the rocket ship.
Yes, he decided to take a spacewalk. He could figure out how to do a spacewalk without dying, but he couldn't figure out how to wake up Bill or Julie.
I would have picked Julie, but that's just me.
Or or Ulysses and shoved Ulysses in the other pod.
Multiple solutions and avenues he could have taken, none of which he did. But yes, so that montage is basically over the course of 24 hours. And then we start getting into a few months later of him doing art projects and different things.
Yep.
And then we cut to 5 months later, and it's almost Lord of the Flies there.
Yes, he's got a
He
beard, his hair is ridiculously long.
he's painted all over his shirt, and apparently mission control has been down because everyone's asleep, so they have no one manning the station.
Yes, no one is watching. You've got people on a rocket ship asleep for 8 months. You're gonna have a video feed, even if it is minutes, months, hours behind all this time, however long communication takes.
They do have that.
They do. I know they do, but no one's monitoring it. No one's keeping an eye on them. They're just like, "Oh, they're asleep. Let's ignore it till they wake up."
Right. Well, because Fred finally gets in touch with Bud because Bud comes in because it's getting close to wake up time, so he wants to be prepared. And so, yeah, they start communicating about how Randall has found that the storms appear to be coming early. It's not looking good. They're basically going to have to land and turn around and go home. They should abort the mission.
Yeah.
And he asks Randall why he's awake. Randall explains what all has happened, and he says that he's hacked into the security feeds so that Paul won't know that he's been awake this whole time and won't know that anything has gone wrong.
Instead of saying, "Hey, I got a book here. Let me see. This is how you open the other pods. Move the monkey and go to sleep."
Yeah. No, no, this was easier. And so it cuts to, well, Bud says he'll talk to Paul about the situation. And then it cuts to Bud telling Paul about the situation and to reconsider the mission. And Paul's like, okay, I'll go reconsider the mission. Nope, mission's still on. Thank you.
Yeah. Paul's kind of a weasel.
Yeah, and then we cut back to Randall, and he's painting, We see him painting. We don't see what he's painting, but we see he is painting.
He's painting up on the ceiling.
Yes. And his alarm goes off, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's time to wake up!" And so he runs over to the pods to try to pretend like he was sleeping the whole time, even though he's in the shirt and his pants are ripped and he looks a mess. And they're like, "Oh, Fred, what are you doing up?" And he goes, "Oh, you know me. I'm a morning person. It's just trying to make some coffee." And they walk into the room and they see his painting, and Bill's like, "You've been awake." And he's like, "No, it was the monkey."
You've been
That
awake the whole time.
and puts
What
it.
about our food?
Yep, you painted with our food. He goes, "No, I got plenty of spares. Anchovy paste, gefilte fish. I'm not eating this." And so Bill is in a rage, but
Yes. I was gonna say, if they slept for 8 months, their hair would still grow. Bill looks the same as when he went in, clean shaven and
yeah,
short hair. I mean, Fred Randall, I mean, he cut his own hair after at a certain point,
right.
but
Maybe it takes care of all that for you. I don't know. Suspension of disbelief.
yes.
And yeah, he gets caught right away, and the beautiful painting. I forget what it's a painting of, but
It's
it's
the 16th
it's
chapel.
the Sistine Chapel.
Yes.
Right. I thought there was a different name for it of the
No, it's
actual.
the creation of man.
Yeah, and but except it's Fred and the monkey Ulysses touching fingers, and Julie's like holding him
Yes.
baby style.
It's weird.
But yes, that's what it is. I know it's the Sistine Chapel. Thank you. And I just have in my notes, they at Mars. So they,
Yeah. Yes,
Julie
they at
calms this
Mars.
diffuses Julie diffuses the situation by saying, "Hey Bill, we're here." And so yeah, they land. They're in talks with. It's like a live broadcast of Bill about to be the first man on Mars.
Well,
First man to
they get in the shuttle, or not the yeah, the not the shuttle, the capsule that goes down to Mars first,
right. Capsule
because they
goes
gotta get on
down.
this. They gotta get on the surface.
Sure. That's right. I forgot that part. Sorry. And they have a little bit of technical difficulty, and
Uh-huh.
there's a problem with landing. Randall fixes it.
Yep.
12% correction is what it is. He knew it was 12 the whole time. And so then now it's the live broadcast of Bill about to go down the ladder and become the first man to set foot on Mars.
Yes.
And Fred slips, and Fred falls, and Fred falls past Bill and lands on Mars first.
He does.
So Fred becomes the first man to set foot on Mars.
And as he's lying there, before anyone can say anything, he says, "It wasn't me."
And then we get the newspaper that pops up and says, "First words on Mars, it wasn't me." Which beautiful.
And Bill's not happy.
No, no. Fred's having a wonderful time. And then let's see. Oh yes, because now they're talking about all the firsts. Hey, I'm the first person to walk backwards on Mars. Hey, I'm the first person to blow a kiss on Mars. And he blows one to Julie and she blushes and he goes, "Hey, you're the first person to blush on Mars."
You're the first person to show unnecessary rudeness on Mars.
Yeah, because he's like, "I would you like to be the first man to die on Mars?" Like, whoa. Yeah, that whole part was great.
But they can't. They don't have time to play. They got mission to do.
Right. And so they get the Mars car out. That's what I call it. I don't know what it's really called.
Mars car, I like it,
Okay.
as opposed
And
to a
so they're
Mars
the
rover.
well, the Mars rover is different.
True.
The Mars car,
Yes, the Mars car.
patent pending. So they're the Mars car and they're driving. And once again, hey, can I drive? No. Are we there yet? No. Can I park it? No. You never let me drive.
There's no seatbelt on this thing. What if I fly through the windshield?
Yes. There is no windshield. What if I fly through my face shield?
Then I'll die happy.
Exactly. Such hostility, which I can't say I fully blame him for the anger.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit, like a little bit. I get it a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, Bill has had 9 shuttle missions because he's counting.
Yes, he is.
But he's a decorated astronaut. He's been doing this his whole life, and he's getting the opportunity to go to Mars. And it was designated as the leader of this mission and the first one to be able to step foot on Mars and have the first words. It's right up there with Armstrong, right? Neil Armstrong.
Yep.
And as he's going down the ladder, this guy.
You took a long time to hunt for an appropriate word.
They weren't going to be family friendly. Uh, falls
More
past you.
this maroon.
Yes, this maroon falls past you, knocks you off the ladder, but lands first and says it wasn't me. The history books that should have had your name in them now has Fred Randall. It wasn't me after he fell off the ladder and pushed
Right,
the other guy out of the way. Who's the other guy?
but
No, no, no.
no. Because if you look at Neil Armstrong, sure he was first, but who was more famous? Buzz Aldrin, who was second.
That's arguable.
It is arguable. However, the story of this dude that wasn't supposed to be, but the story of how Fred Randall became the first is going to have a lot to do with the
Yes.
the something over of Wild Bill.
The passing over.
No, it's worse than that.
Ah,
Everyone knows what I mean. Yeah. I guess back in the day we would have said scroofed. The scroofing over.
yeah, I'm trying to remember what the if you were something on an inclined plane. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, there would still be the
Hang
story of
on.
Fred Randall tells a lot about Wild Bill. So he's still gonna be famous. Oh, we looking it up still?
Yeah, if you were an inclined plane wrapped around a cylinder.
Ah, thank you for that. That I'm just gonna cut out anyway. So
I'll put that in there.
fine.
It would be an inclined plane wrapped around a cylinder. Anyway.
Anyway, that is correct.
Ow.
So Julie takes the car and leaves to go do what she gotta do with the monkey.
Mhm.
And that leaves Fred and Bill alone to set up their equipment
And plant the flag.
and plant the flag, which Fred struggles to get out and proceeds to lose it. Drop it down the canyon.
Yes. Yes, it is stuck in the tube, and then with a little bit of force, it goes whoop, out of his hands.
Yes, and they're getting ready. They're setting up the camera so that the world can see the planting of the flag on Mars.
Yes.
And Fred's like, "Don't worry, I have a backup." And he pulls off his underwear, and
Boxers.
it's underwear.
Yeah, it's boxers though.
Boxers. It is boxers. Yes.
It's got that better shape as opposed to um
Briefs.
yes, briefs or a Speedo style
That's not
suit.
gonna say that we'll stick with briefs. So yeah, he gets out his boxer shorts and hangs them up there, and
He somehow gets
everybody
his boxer shorts out.
without taking off his suit.
Yes, he's on Mars. He's got to get his suits, his boxer shorts
Off.
off himself, and then out of his suit. And you hear the zip of the zipper as he struggling with the suit. He's like, "I got it. It's a flag. It's a fine flag. A wonderful flag."
And the world salutes his shorts.
Yes. We run,
Yeah.
we jump, we swim and play. Sorry.
We row and go on trips,
This
but
is
the things that last forever
are our dear
are dear
friendships.
friendships.
So this is the singing podcast,
Apparently, none of us. Well,
and it's not even a musical.
no, it's not. Well, there's musical numbers.
There's not musical numbers. There's songs.
I'm cutting that out because I sound stupid. Anyway, so they get a report back at headquarters, not headquarters, at Mission Control, that Fred's O2 levels are down. He doesn't
Bills.
have enough
Bills are down
bills.
because he got
Bills,
smacked with the flagpole while
right,
Fred was trying to.
right. He got hit with the flagpole, so something got knocked loose. So Bill's O2 levels are dropping.
Yes.
So he needs to tether to Fred for the long walk back to the shuttle. And on the way back, Fred is talking quite
A
a
lot.
bit. And then he says, "Oh, I got these stabbing pains in my guts." And Bill does not care at all. But I'll tell you what, Bill's about to care quite a bit because you hear the sounds of gas passing and the visual effect of Fred's suit bloating.
Inflating.
Yes. It was great. Loved it. And so, yeah, he looks over and Fred's, it wasn't me. What do you mean it wasn't you? 30,
He's like, what?
32 million miles away from the nearest person. He's like, okay, fine, it was me.
Yeah. Well, then we cut back to Mission Control briefly, and they're like, sir, Overbeck's in distress.
Yes.
It's like, look at these methane levels.
Like, well, methane, why is methane? And then like the boss of everybody's sitting there and he starts laughing. Pretty soon, all of Mission Control's in stitches over poor Bill's fate.
Bill's like, it's in my mouth.
He's like, yeah, he's just having a miserable time because it can't go anywhere.
No,
It doesn't dissipate in nothing.
nope. It's just,
It's just, and it's like, well, it's already here. I might as well relieve the rest of it.
yeah. It's like, sir, I don't feel good. You don't feel good.
That's fair. And so, yeah, so they continue walking back because what else are they gonna do?
Exactly.
They get back to the ship.
Yes.
We'll just jump right to there because it's nothing but fart jokes all the way back. So they're back at the ship, and Fred reveals that the weather is not good and they're probably gonna have to abort the mission. And he shows Julie and Bill what he's talking about. Bill doesn't want to hear anything about aborting the mission. Julie steps in and says, I don't want to abort either, but I can see what's going on, and Fred's right. And they compromise and say, we'll look at everything in the morning. If it's good to go, if the weather's still holding up, we'll go take care of everything we can real quick and then get out of here. If it's bad, we have to abort. So they all agree to that.
Yeah.
So they all go to bed except Fred, who stays up late chatting with his friend Bud.
Yes.
And at this point, Bud reveals the truth about Apollo 13, what happened, what really went wrong.
It was less of a Valdez situation.
It was, but it was still, he still takes ownership for the fact of like he had complete control to make the call and he didn't.
Right, right. He found that there was an error or a malfunction and brought it to Paul's attention. And Paul's like, we're fine. Let's just keep going. And
And he,
Bud just kind of rolled over and said, okay.
yeah, so he blames himself.
Yeah.
And then it's the next morning. Randall's having a heck of a nightmare, and Julie's waking him up, and she reveals that Bill and the chimp, Bill and Ulysses are gone. No, never on the chimp up until just now. Bill and Ulysses are gone.
Yes. They
And then
have
they have
Bill.
taken everything. Bill took everything he needed. He's not going. This is his mission. He's going. He's going to do what needs doing.
Right.
Yes.
He wasn't going to wait to assess. He got up early to get out there and get things done.
Right, because he didn't want to wait to get bogged down by the weather. He just needed to go do what he's doing.
Right.
And then we go back to Mission Control. Bud's making a stink. He's talking to Ben, and he's like, "Hey, this is what's going on. Things are not fine. Things are not going to be not okay. We need to abort the mission now." And Paul's shooting him down, saying nothing's wrong, and threatens to call security. Actually, no, he doesn't threaten. He does call security.
Yeah.
And security comes in, and Ben's like, Bud, don't make this any worse than it already is. And at that point, Randall comes in and says, the storms are here. What do we do? And they're like, what? Oh my gosh. And
Houston
Paul's still in denial. He's like, no, there's no storms there. Everything's fine. And like the video's cutting out, and he's making some strange comparisons to things.
Oh, I wish I would have written that down.
Me too. Something about a tennis racket and
His great aunt Muriel, or
his great aunt Muriel with a tennis racket. It's hysterical. I thought I would remember it better, and I don't.
like,
So I
do you understand
apologize.
me?
And so basically, what happens is Hall gets fired and Bud gets promoted.
Yeah, Bud is put in charge of the mission, and he's told to get their people home.
And then We go to Bill. He's caught up in the storm. He's trying
Yeah.
to get. He's with Ulysses, who is clearly not a chimp at this point.
No, it's a dude in a suit.
It is Vern
Is it Vern
Troyer.
Troyer?
It
Okay.
is Vern Troyer. That's what I was going to say at the beginning of the movie when we first met
Ah,
Ulysses. But I was like, let's save it. But yes, Vern Troyer is the body double for Ulysses
Ulysses in the spacesuit.
in the spacesuit when it needs to be. And then, so yeah, they go back to it goes back to the shuttle. Fred's talking with Bud, and Bud's like, "You got 20 minutes until you can't get out of there. You need to go now." And Fred's like, "No, Bill's still out there. We gotta wait." And Bud's like, "You don't have the time." And Fred's like, "Well, then I'm gonna go for him."
Yeah.
And so he looks at Julian. He goes, "20 minutes," and he leaves. And he comes back in, and he's like, "20, not 15, right?" which which was great. And she's like, right. And he goes,
Not
and
15.
21 would be okay too. And then he leaves again, and she turns around. And did you notice that when she turns around, she has about a 2.5 inch long cricket on her back?
No, I did not notice that.
Yep. Yep. She's got a big old cricket right on her back.
Interesting.
Rachel pointed it out. I didn't notice it either. I was like, is that symbolic? I read way too far into it. There was a cricket on her back and they didn't notice and they filmed it. It's not some like symbolic Jiminy cricket thing making a wish and wish for no. It's not symbolic. They made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to make that clear.
You're like, it's Jiminy Cricket. It's the concept.
Dude, at first I'm like, oh my gosh. Because Rachel's like, oh, there's a cricket. And I go, what? She's like, yeah, did you see the cricket? And I go, no. So I rewound it because I'm thinking, cool, that Jiminy Cricket. They put Jiminy Cricket somewhere in the background. I pause it and she's like, look, a cricket. And I'm like, oh, real life cricket on her back. Got it.
Jiminy Cricket.
Not Jiminy Cricket. Still cool. But, so yeah, Fred's running out in the storm. He finds Ulysses, and Bill's not with him. And so he keeps searching, and he finds Bill, and Bill's trapped under the car. And he's trying to
Yes.
he tries to lift the car off of Bill, and he can't. But he remembers that mothers gain the strength of 20 men when they're trying to save their babies. So he tells Bill to call him mommy. And Bill says, I would rather die right here. But he talks him into it. And Bill reluctantly calls him mommy. And he goes, no,
Yes.
say it like you love me. And his part was funny. I liked it.
Like, save me, mommy.
Yeah, he's like, oh, mommy. Save me, mommy. Please, mommy. And then I didn't catch it the first time, but the second time he's like, oh, I got you, little Billy. And he's lifted up.
Mommy's here.
Yeah, mommy's here. And he lifts it up enough so Bill gets out. And he like hugs him and he goes, oh, mommy saved you, little Billy. And he goes, don't you ever call me little Billy. And so, yeah, so they head back to the shuttle and lost in the storm.
Yep.
And there's 10 minutes left, and Julie's panicking because they're not back yet. And so she initiates a launch sequence.
Yep, she's
prepping for the launch, but what she's really doing is sending out a beacon so they can see the flames coming out of the bottom of the shuttle, and they have a beacon to get home.
Yeah.
But at this point, Ulysses' tank is empty. And so he says that he's going to tether, but Bill reminds him that he doesn't have the spare tube. And so he's like, well, then I'll give him my air, and you don't leave a friend behind.
Yeah.
So he gives Ulysses his air tank and holds his breath and runs.
Yeah, he's like, remember, I've got the record.
Right.
And Bill's trying to say a couple things. He's like, you haven't talked to me this entire trip, and now you want to chat?
Yeah. Now that I'm holding my breath, you want to chat? Which, good point.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to the shuttle, and Bill and Ulysses come back, and Julie's like, well, where's Fred? And he's like, oh, Fred should have been here by now. He's holding his breath out there. So they're back on the spaceship, and Bill decides he's going to go out and get Fred Randall. And his tank's empty, and he's like, he's going to hold his breath too.
Right. He's like, it doesn't matter. Randall's holding his breath out there. It's I gotta get him.
Yeah, we can't waste any more time. We gotta go.
Yeah.
And so he looks at her and says, 5 minutes. If we're not back in 5 minutes, go.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, because they'll have suffocated by then.
Right.
And so he leaves and goes out and finds Randall pretty quickly. They don't really
Yeah.
waste a lot of time with that. He goes out, he gets him, he brings him back in, throws him down, takes his own says, get his mask off, and takes his own mask off because he can't breathe in there.
Right.
I think he would have had like a little bit of oxygen left in there.
Yeah, a little bit of air in the suit is not like, and then all your air is gone, unless it all went out the tube. But then why? It's just like yeah. There's a little bit of
Right.
air in the suit.
No,
You
you
have
you
a
you would have held your breath first.
right.
You would have, and then held it till your lung capacity, and then it when you absolutely had to, you would use, get a second. You probably had two lungfuls of air there.
Probably a few more, but I'm no space expert,
I'm
so
saying like two like in your suit. So you had the
yeah.
one, and then you had two more in the suit. So really, yeah. Anyway, they bring
Anyway,
him in, they throw him down, get his helmet off, and Julie's like, "You are not dying, buddy." And so she gives him mouth to mouth, brings him back.
and he shoves her out of the way and says,
He
"Ulysses needs air."
shoves her out of the way and goes straight to Ulysses. And she's like, "He's fine. He's just resting. We took care of him long ago." And so everyone is A-OK, and they're launching out of there, and it looks like they're gonna make it, and then they get hit.
Yeah, by a piece
And
of space debris.
yep, and they start spiraling back down, and it's a callback right to Randall's test that he failed.
Yes, the spinny chair with all the wires.
Right, and the news is reporting this, so the whole world can see that they are in dire straits right now, and they are dependent on Randall putting the circuit back together in
Yep,
two
they are
minutes.
they are live feeding to
Yes,
Earth.
32 million miles away, and it's live.
8 months away.
But so
Movie got a movie.
we got a movie, but Bud's in communication with Randall. Bud gives him this sweet pep talk.
Yep.
It works. He's getting it all together. He needs something to complete the circuit. He grabs Bud's coin, jams it in there. It completes the circuit and saves the day. And they launch up out of there.
Yep.
And it goes to mission control. And there's lots of cheering and hugging. So now Fred and Julie are talking.
Yep.
And Fred asks her to dance. And
Yes.
she's like, "Oh, I don't know. It didn't go well the last time." And he goes, "Well, one, I've been practicing. And I've gotten really creative with the space blankets." And he shows the silver and gold that have
They're cut
been
up.
cut up. They're cut up.
Yeah.
And she steps out. It cuts to her stepping out in this extravagant gold dress that was clearly not made from a space blanket.
Yes.
But I'm gonna give it to him because it is lovely and it's a sweet moment. Because he steps out in a silver suit tuxedo, also clearly not made from the space blanket.
With silver shoes.
I'm gonna give it to him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna be like, you know what? Awesome, because I loved it so much. And they dance to Jiminy Cricket, and they have a kiss.
Wish upon a star.
Better. Okay, so they're dancing to Jiminy Cricket, and then they kiss.
Yes.
And Gordon, Gordon's nowhere to be found.
Bill.
Bill decides he likes Fred now, and so he's doing the little spotlight. They turn off the anti-gravity so that they turn off the artificial gravity so they're dancing all around the place. The monkey gives Bill a kiss on the cheek,
Right. It's a sweet moment and a good end to the movie.
or it would be if it were the end to the movie.
Yeah.
Because now, and it's time to go sleep for 8 months back, and I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why the adults go to bed first again.
It's so it's so Julie can fall asleep looking at Randall and have her hand drop seductively down herself.
Why is Bill asleep then?
I don't know. That was just stupid on Bill's part.
After what happened last time, you would think Bill's like, no, not letting that happen twice.
Yeah.
But apparently he's just like, yeah, you know what? It happens. And so it ends with, once again, Ulysses steals
Randall's.
Fred's
Fred Randall.
sleep, Fred Randall's sleeping pod, and then we roll credits.
He says, "Not again!" And then
Right,
credit roll, yeah.
and then roll credits, and then if you watch all the credits,
Is there an after credit scene?
if you watch all the credits,
Yes.
you will see a Martian walking away wearing Randall's boxer shorts.
That's right. I remember that now. I didn't watch it last time, but I do remember that now.
And we end the movie. So since I picked this movie and I've been leading this part of it, why don't you go ahead and give me your final thoughts first?
Like Street Fighter, this is not a good movie. It is a better movie than Street Fighter,
Not hard to do.
but I still enjoyed a lot of it. There were some few things that stood out to me that nostalgia didn't hang onto this one like it did with I'd say Street Fighter, because given the two choices, I'd watch Street Fighter again.
And not this?
I mean, if I probably will watch this again.
Okay.
But if someone's saying, "Hey, you want to watch Street Fighter Rocket Man?" I'm like, put Street Fighter in.
Okay.
But I mean, it had a lot of cute moments. There was funny. It made me laugh a lot more than I remember laughing at it.
That's
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so I had fun with it. It's probably not going to go back into my movie rotation, but it was good to watch it again. And this is coming from the guy that watched Airheads and likes Airheads.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah,
your thoughts?
I was kind of surprised by the way by your final thoughts on this. I loved most of this movie.
Yeah.
A good I think the last two-thirds of it are much better than the beginning. I don't think it starts well.
Okay.
So like a lot of the beginning where Fred's just annoying, I don't much care for that, but once he starts to develop more of an actual personality and becomes more of a three-dimensional human being that you can relate to and understand and appreciate, and
Yeah.
they tone down the stupid comedy where they make it more of like, yeah, he's childish, but it's still kind of clever and it's a callback and it's fun, and they play into those tropes a little bit more than just the ridiculousness. I don't
Okay.
know. There were a few parts that went over the top for me that were just
I was gonna
like,
say the boxer shorts and the flatulent spacesuit.
no, I thought that was great. Like really, everything. It was the Mr. Bean thing at the beginning, the getting out of the car. His
Yeah.
character has never been like that again,
True. Yeah.
and it was just and the foot to the misters that bummed me out because it always does, and just yeah. I guess there's only really a few parts that stood out that really bugged me overall. I think it's a solid movie front to back,
Okay, that's
with the
fair.
except
I
with the exception of the few over the top moments that I didn't care for. Oh, the
I
thing with
am
the monkey too. Yeah. The fight scene with the monkey, that was a bit
ah,
but
I
it's also a kid Disney movie and a kid movie.
true, true. I am enjoying the movie more talking to you about it than I did when I first watched it. Um, not first watched it, but watched it again. So
Right. Yeah.
maybe I will give it a good go again.
Yeah, I
But
don't know. I remember loving it when I watched it as a kid, and to me it totally held up. Like I cannot wait to watch this with Finley. And
yeah,
Rachel thought it was fun. She's that's what she said. She goes, "It's fun." I laughed a lot. It's funny, but I don't think she's gonna go out of her way to watch. She said she wouldn't go out of her way to watch it.
okay. So
And
we're in a similar boat on that where I thought it was fun. I laughed a lot, but it's
I think it's gonna be one of those movies that like it's gonna I'm not gonna go out of my way to watch it, but when it comes up of like RocketMan, what's this? Oh, put it on.
yeah.
Great movie. So I think it'll come on by act. I don't think it'll ever be like a thought out movie that we watch. It'll just kind of come on, get played randomly, and I'm okay with
Okay.
that. All right. And I think that wraps up our final thoughts on RocketMan. So now for our increasingly favorite part of this podcast, Marshall is now going to tell me what steaming pile we're gonna no. Now I'm gonna figure out what movie Marshall's gonna have us watch next.
So I was with doing all the covers and everything. I was putting a few things in my calendar, and this one that I'm picking right now comes out the week before Mother's Day. So it'll be Sunday, and then the one after that will be Mother's Day.
So this one will come out Mother's Day or the right before Mother's Day.
It'll come out the Sunday before Mother's Day. So we're not having anything release on Mother's Day.
Okay.
But since it's close, and I want to, I thought maybe we'd do a movie that Mom would enjoy, as opposed to apologizing again and again for movies that we pick.
Okay.
It is a movie I enjoy a lot. I watched it a few times growing up, but it's in the same vein of movies we watched growing up. And we are going to be watching the Kurt Russell, uh, Goldie Hawn classic, Overboard.
Fantastic. Yeah. Actually, Rachel and I just watched this movie probably maybe about a month ago. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
we should do this one for the podcast.
Yeah, it's a good 80s comedy movie. It fits in with the like What About Bob, Great Outdoors, that classic 80s comedy. And I think it's a good, I don't want to say refresher, but we just did Street Fighter and Rocket Man, so
So, yeah.
so yes. We are doing we're gonna be doing Overboard, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that movie. It's gonna be interesting to really to look that deep into it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what comes of it and what we think of it.
And it's our first Kurt Russell movie. That was not real words. This
No,
is our
no,
first Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn movie.
yes.
This is our
Uh,
first Kurt freaking movie.
All right, so that wraps up today's episode. We want to say thank you to everyone who joined us through our adventure to Mars and back. If you would like to reach out to us, once again, you can do that via email at watchitbropodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at watchitbropod, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram with the same handle. Our music is provided by Nihilor, intro being Grace, outro being Haven, and as always, thank you for watching.